All right. Okay. What's up? Today, I think what I want to do is we're going to create. I'm going to show you how I create some stuff in Illustrator. So a lot of what I do is graphic design and things like that. And a lot of the stuff I've been posting has been like gaming related content and that kind of stuff. So I want to add a aspect to my streams, I guess, of doing graphic design. And for that, I've created a new graphic design logo for celeryman that is down here-ish. I actually can't get down to it because of the way I have this set up. But, yeah, so basically what it is it's called... I'm going to just be calling it Celeryman Graphics. I actually have a company that I do a lot of graphic design work through. This is not that company. I have totally different website for that and everything along those lines. Maybe we'll get into that one day, but today is not that day. So what I want to do is walk you through how to create a logo like this. Now this is actually be something that's called logo type. Not necessarily a logo per se, where there's like a bug, as some people call it, or iconography. That's related to the logo itself, but in any instance, whatever, we're just gonna go ahead and jump into this and create this. So this is I have a subscription to Adobe Creative Suite, and with that you can have different libraries. Now I have different libraries for different aspects of my job and what I do, and this one is one that I've created for this specific stream already. It's going to be the different logos that we're going to create, starting with this one, which is the Celeryman Graphics logo. One thing you can do if you're going to be copying logos or something like that is you can actually, like kind of trace through it if you want to, type and figure out what else is being used. I already know what I want to use for this, and we already have the fonts ready, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. This is going to be really quick. Maybe in some streams in the future, we can get more into some of like the specific techniques that I'm using and things like that. And I know something else I want to add is like what keystrokes I'm using, because I use a lot of shortcuts. I try not to even get my mouse over here too much unless there's something that I absolutely have no idea what it is. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and jump into it, and I'm going to start off. I'll try and say what keys I'm pressing. There's a chance I may forget when I get into this, as I like to try work fast. It's kind of an aspect of being a graphic designer, especially like an ad agency and things like that, where I've worked in the past, of they want stuff done quickly. And with that, you need to have some speed. And knowing the shortcuts for things over here, like type, for example, is just pressing T, and then you have the type tool. So we're going to go ahead and start off. I'm going to type in Celeryman for the logo. Resize this up to a larger font. Now, what some people do, and I've mentioned this I think before, but if not, this might be new to you. Some people mess with what's called the tracking, which is the space between letters. As you can see, I'm turning it up. They get bigger, and as we lower it, they squish together. Now, someone that's pretty popular on YouTube before that's used tracking is someone named Mitchell Davis with Live Lava Live. He adjusted the tracking. He used a different font. I don't know. I don't have the font that he used. He used Helvetica. And you'd think, why don't you have that font? Well, I wish I did. I just don't. So you have to deal with it. I don't mess with the tracking for this logo. I don't like to unless there's like a design reason that you need to. Like this Live Lava Live does look kind of funny with no tracking on it. Looks much better like that-ish. I think he even had his close or something like that. I don't like that. I like the space. But with that being said, we're going to get back to mine. So that's the Celeryman logo that I use. And the color that I use, this, if you're looking here at my color swatches, it's actually showing it incorrectly. It has as a hex code, which is what these 6 digits represent. We'll get into hex codes in another stream. But it has 50B848. I actually, the actual color is 51B848. It's a minor discrepancy, I guess, but it's still, I mean, it's different. So we're going to change the color just simply by clicking on that. If you don't have these styles already set up, then you can double click over here on this is the fill color, and behind it is the stroke color. But on the fill color, and see, it came up correctly here. but you can come up to the fill color, you can adjust what you want, hit OK, it changes it. So this is the one that I use for all of my greens everywhere, and you can zoom in like I just did using Control+. So with that said, this part of the logo is actually pretty much complete. I like to add a trademark symbol to my logos. And the key with these is to make something that's not huge. I mean, you want people to see it, but you don't want it to just take away from the logo. So I think that's about how I normally do it. And I'm actually going to, I'm going to see how it looks in relation to the one I already created. Yeah, shrink it down a little. There we go. Okay, so next up we need to add the word graphics, which you can see is down here. The font that I used is actually called, I've titled it here as the subtitle font style. It is a font called Jellica, and I'm not familiar with that. Probably some of you are. I, however, am not, and it's called Estria's Handwriting. The size of the font it's a pretty small font, so I've beefed it up to 364.9 points. Whenever we apply it, looks like that. That's the size we use in relation to the Gotham Black font that I use for the main logo at 189.43 points. So that's the ratio between those. Something else you want to think about is the placement of where these go. So one thing that I did is whenever I place it, I like this eye like right here in the middle of the N. I think that's what I put down here too. Yeah. Although I must have resized this at one point because this is almost to here. So I'm actually going to resize this now to fit in. That's really weird. That is really strange. Really, really strange. I don't know why it's like that. Nevertheless, I did have it bigger. So, and this is important to why if you're trying to copy something, that you know exactly how it looks. See, this is actually, the dot on the I is actually closer to the stem of the N over here. So we have it something like this. Cool. I'm going to get rid of this. So, actually, I'm going to bring it back. So, one way to achieve this look of this finished logo that we're already looking at here is you can see that there are cutouts. Or, I'm saying cutouts. You know, there's like an outline around each of the elements from graphics that cuts away from the original celeryman wording. One way you can achieve this is by using a stroke on your text. Now, did I select everything? Nope. It's using a stroke on the text. You can change the stroke by clicking on the stroke color and then picking something that's the same as the background. And look at that. It looks similar, except the letters shrunk down and there's like a line going through this. So what you need to do, if you're worried about that and you're trying to use this method, is head over here to the stroke tool. If you don't have this, if you don't have something in your toolbar over here that I mentioned, you can just go to Window, click on it, and then it'll bring it up. So for stroke, if you place this on the outside, you can see right now. Oh, there's my dog barking at something. Tita, quit. Okay. She's a small dog, and she's like the watchdog of the house. We have two bigger dogs, but nope, she's in charge. So one thing you can do, if it will let me, this isn't letting me, is if we make this into an outline, you can place the stroke on the outside of the font. So I'm going to actually jump back. So this is it as a text element right now. So see, I could change it to like graphics, like I'm from the 90s. However, to change the stroke on something, which I don't know, I didn't think of, it needs to be an object. So one way you can change that is you can go to Object. I don't even know if I remember this anymore. Yeah. Well, I don't remember the long and hard way to do this. That's what she said. But what you can do is if you select an object that's a text file, press Control Shift and then the letter O, and it'll change it into an outline. It'll outline it for you, change it into a shape. That's what I've done here. So, that being said, now we move the stroke out to the outside. And, yeah, I mean, that looks kind of like how it looks. I think the stroke on that up there is a little bit smaller. Anyway, right, pretty similar. However, whenever you apply something behind it, when there's a color behind it, you're going to get something like this. And that doesn't look good, at least in my opinion. Whereas like on this, well, let's change it to a different color so you can see. Maybe for black that would look good. But, let's say you have a background. See how that looks like that? And if that's what you're going for, wonderful, you're done. That's how you make it. However, I like this to be cut out, so you can place it on backgrounds, and I don't know. I like the way it looks, and it's my logo, and I get to make that decision. So the way you do this is we're going to go over here to our layers. Now within layers, we have this top one, which is the original logo. If there's anything you take away from this video, besides any techniques I use, it's important to keep your layers grouped in an organized manner. Otherwise, whenever you have large files and a whole lot going on, it can take forever to find something. Or if another designer is working on your work, they might not be able to find anything, and it might make perfect sense to you. But that's why it's important to work in a very organized, methodical, and easy to find manner. If you think you're being too organized, you're probably almost organized enough, if that makes sense. So here we have the original logo. Go into that original logo, and you can see I've already organized this before, but like here's the celeryman part to it. So if we are looking at this, if that's what we're working on, there's celeryman, and then subtitle. See, super easy to see what we were dealing with. Now I'm going to go ahead and lock that so I don't mess it up while I'm working on this one. And so for this, we're going to group the background part together. Name it celeryman. So whenever you're looking at this, if you're a graphic designer coming in and you see a layer called celeryman, oh, there's celeryman. I know what that is. Now, I actually want that behind for this part of it, and then we'll change that later, but I'll explain why. So for this group here, this is known as our subtitle. So, I mean, that's just kind of an industry term. Anyway, moving on. We don't want a stroke on this for this technique, so we're going to turn this off. You can just click this, it means none. You can also press the / and it'll do that. So if you have like a fill and I don't want to fill, / and it's gone. So what you need to do in order to get the cutout that we see up here without using a stroke is we're going to duplicate the layer in the exact same spot. Now, the way I did it is probably pretty quick and easy. Another way you can do this is if you don't want to go over and mess with your layers, let's say you have it closed, you can click on this, you can hit Control-C, and then Control-Shift-V, and you paste, as you can see now, a layer directly above where the other one was. So if I hide that one below it, see? So, now the point is, however you want to get it, you need to have a copy of the subtitle directly on top of the original. And now that we've done that, we're going to turn that, and I like to work with this easier, we're going to turn this into an outline. And you can do that simply by just selecting it and pressing this button, which will swap the fill and the stroke. I I'm trying not to use a ton of keyboard shortcuts just so you can see where things are over here, but a quicker way to do this is just to hit Shift X and it'll swatch it, or swatch, it'll swap it for you. Next, we're gonna change this up to a fill that I think would be good for this. I'm actually gonna change the size a little bit because in the other one, that M isn't cut off. I think we're somewhere like this actually. Now when you're doing this, it's important to look at a few things. First is whatever is inside the outermost part of this stroke will be cut off from what we're going to do. So this circle, everything from the black inside will be gone. Same with this. This part of the A won't be here. That section of the A will be chopped off. That section of the M, of the last stem of the M, will be cut off, and that's it. And I think that corresponds with our original logo. Yeah, see, only this spot gets chopped off. So the next thing we need to do is we need to turn this stroke into an object. You do that by going to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Unfortunately, there's not a keyboard shortcut for that. That's just where it is. That's how you do it. So now you can see this is no longer a stroke, but it is in fact an object. And in order to have this cut out anything from the celeryman part, that too has to be an object. And now earlier I mentioned how to do that. We do Control-Shift-O, and now it is also an object. And from here we can use an incredible tool called the Pathfinder tool. That is here. It looks almost like the layers, and so as you can see, I actually don't. Oh, I do have it. So it's where these two squares intersect. If you don't have it, you can always go to Window and Pathfinder, or you can do Shift Control F9. I don't remember that one as well, but that's the way to bring it up. What we're gonna do now is a thing. If you were only using like one item, like let's say we only had this part of the eye and that part of the celeryman, the last N selected, you could do something called minus from front. However, if we do minus from front for all of this, you can see we end up with like a mess. So we don't want to do that. Instead, you use the direct selection tool, which is right here. Also on the keyboard is just pressing A, and you will bring that key up. So we actually can select all of this because we're going to be using that, but we only need to select the man from celeryman. And we're going to use Pathfinder and a tool called Divide. So when I clicked it, I just clicked it. Looks like nothing happened. However, if you see here, we now have, we can now see paths running through both of the objects. And when that happens, we can go in and we can, using the direct selection tool, don't use the regular select tool or else you'll end up deleting things that you don't mean to delete. So using the direct selection tool, we select the part of the letter that we want gone and press backspace or delete. And the same for the inner part. And then you can see that little piece hangs over. We're going to delete that out, and we can actually just click this and delete that altogether. So that shape, oh, and there's a last part here too. That shape has now actually been cut out of the N on man. You can see that that's actually missing. Something else you might have seen while I was doing this is when you hover, see there's this invisible path down here that you can see. I'll show you, we'll talk more about that here in a second. So we're going to keep cutting out elements that we don't need from the letters, and I'm just going to do that all real quick. And now one thing I have at my job is a mouse that you can click the wheel over, like from side to side, and it'll actually move you in the program from side to side, which is super nice. I don't have that at my house, so we're not going to use it. I have a gaming mouse instead, which doesn't do that. Now, everything has been cut out, and I've selected this, and you can see that there are a lot of invisible paths. Now, that doesn't detract from the work. You could go ahead and place in the rest of your file here. You could delete out these the same way, and you'd be good to go. However, if you have a lot of stuff like that going on, that adds a lot of unnecessary size to your file. Now, not a lot, but if you have a big file, then it will add more that you don't necessarily need, and it'll just take up space that isn't needed, which you never need to do. Now I've selected all of this. I've used the direct selection tool. You run right along. So I'm making sure to grab everything, and now we delete. That's all gone. So if we look down here, nothing. Another important thing to do is sometimes whenever you're cutting out things, it makes shapes up in like this area. So I like to grab over everywhere where I cut out, and then we'll look and we can actually see some additional shapes that are up here that we don't need. So like this, gone. I guess I didn't grab that. That, gone, and there's another one here, which is gone. And now I think I've got it. I'm gonna check again. I think I see an anchor down here that we don't need. Yep. Okay, and that all looks good. And now we're gonna zoom out and we're gonna do it bigger. Perfect. So see, now we have that cut out of the celeryman, like base logo, we'll call it. What we want to do next is we want to add in our original subtitle because we locked that layer and we hid it so we can see what we're cutting out. And then when we turn it back on, well, I resized it before we did that. Ah, crap. It's okay. What we're going to do is just move this into the position that it was. This is not the way you typically want to do this, but it will work for this. Okay, so now you can see we have that cut out and we actually have the word graphics below it. Just the way that we want it, and that's wonderful and great. Perfect. So what else this logo has up here is we have an underlined under the celery. So from celery to the beginning of man. A way to do that is you can use the rectangle tool, and this is actually the way that I originally did it, is to use the rectangle tool. A quick way to get to the rectangle tool if you don't want to have to keep moving your mouse back over to here is just press the letter M on your keyboard. And so this runs almost to the A. We're going to shrink it down. I do this just because whenever I first started doing graphic design, we didn't have this nice little feature, which would, I'm going to place that over here, which would let us know if we're in line with something. That didn't exist whenever I first started. Like this, how I just made this. Fast, easy, simple. We didn't have that. But we have it now, so I'm going to show you how to use it. So you can just literally, like, I want to align it with this. I'm hovering my cursor over this, and it tells me I'm in line with it. There we go. I'm going to drag it over here. It's a little bit short of the stem, the middle stem on the M. And then that's that shape. Now, one thing I don't like, and people are probably going to disagree with me on this, but that's okay. You can. This is, again, my logo, as I don't want that to align with the outside of celery. Just for me, just looking now, it looks like it's too long. I didn't do that in the original one that I've created that's now on this stream. So I'm going to bring it in a little bit. Just so that it feels, see, that feels... It's a feel thing, really, but I just like the way that feels better when I look at it. And another thing we did is I cut out somewhere around the Y. Now, I didn't do that in the same manner that I did this one or this one. Instead, I just made a rectangle using M. I tried to just kind of get it even on both sides of the Y, where it is, where the Y is intersecting the rectangle. And then just using Pathfinder, I use divide. Using the direct selection, you delete these out. Delete that. There we have it. And so now you can see we have a pretty good, I mean, it's not perfect. It would have been had I not resized that before. Had I not resized the graphics outline before cutting it out, but that's okay. But now moving it down, you can see we actually have a pretty dang close logo from the original. One that's passable at least, and one that if you were following along and you're trying to create this with me, one that you now have some cool techniques to use at your disposal. Now, something else that I've created is, we're just going to go back to using this one. So, something else I've created is different versions of the logo. These are important to have because you will inadvertently, at some point in time, have to use like this logo. Let's say we have this logo, but we want to use it on a green background that's almost the same color, or we'll just say for this example that is the same color. That's what it would look like when we place it, and that's no good. So instead what we do is, let's say this is the background. We create what's known as alternative logos using the same color palette that we have. So white is another color that I like to use. Whatever logo you're using, I mean, it's dependent upon the logo that you're using. So to do that, to create this version of the logo, all you need to do is we have our original that we created, and now we will drag and make a copy on top of the background that I've placed. And you can drag and create a copy by holding Shift and Alt on PC. I don't know what it is on Windows, or on Apple, I'm sorry, or on a Mac. So we have created a copy right here on top of this. I like to hide this layer as I'm working so that we can see it. And I will select so we're in the what's known as the original logo. Let's create a new layer so we can follow along here. And we will name this Light 1, because we're going to have two light logos. Because this is this is what's known as a dark logo. Everything has a fill that can go on top of a light background, therefore it is a dark logo. Now, whenever we have this, here's our original logo. As you can see, we want to place it on top of the rectangle. And now here we have celeryman. Simple enough, you can just click next to it. That is now selected. And I want to change this to white. Just as simple, literally as simple as just clicking in the fill and then changing it to white. Another thing we want to do is put our background back on behind it to make sure it looks okay. And you can see here that there is that part of the A is filled in. We don't necessarily want that. You can press the direct selection shortcut, which is A, to bring up that tool. Click within that, press delete, it's gone. And so now looking at the original logo, we can see it's still the same, but now it works on a dark background. And so let's say that we have an even darker background, for example, like we have a black one. When we have a black background like that, this original light logo that we created, that's all well and good. The original one that we created, that's all well and good. If we were to place that on a black background, oops, you can see, oh, didn't want to do that. Okay, you can see that now we lose the graphics part of it, and that's not good. That's not what we want. So we need to make a logo that is solid white. So to do this, we have our logo. Let's delete the background. Yes, that's hard to see right now. That's fine. Instead of selecting the celeryman part of it, you can see the subtitle. We'll just select subtitle, and you probably guessed it, we're going to change it to white. And now let's turn on our background, and you can see that it now shows up. So our original that uses white as spacing, I guess you could say, even though it's not, it's whatever background is showing through it, has two main colors, and that is that's the green and the black. Green and black. And so if we place this logo on any green or black background, it's going to look bad. So therefore we create alternates. And this is a white with a black to go on a green, and we have all white to go on a black. Now it doesn't always have to be all white. You could instead decide to have it be like a green on a black. I mean, that would be fine. I like the way that looks better. It's just my own preference. It kind of falls in line with the rest of the styling that I have. And vice versa on this logo, for example, you could have it be all black. If you just only are having if you need to print something, for example, it's only 2 color. This would be a 3 color print, which would be more expensive. This would be a 2 color print, which is less expensive. You could do it that way. Or, for example, if you have the white, you could also have it like that, which I would prefer. If I was going to print something, that's how it would be. So yeah, basically that's how we go about creating these. Something else that I think that this logo has that we haven't talked about yet is down here. Let me double check. Yeah, there's a live icon, like right above the C and the E. So how we create that is, I'm actually going to hide our original lights, and we're going to work just with the original logo, so I can see it. How we create that is by using what's known as a rounded rectangle. To bring up these, you just click and hold, and I can see rounded rectangle tool. I like to use it at 3 points. If you have much more than that, it can start to look more ovally, something along those lines. It all depends on the size of the rectangle, but I already know what I'm going to be making and the size of it. So you go ahead and hit OK. It'll drop it down. That what I had was way too big. So anyway, that doesn't matter for now. We're just going to place that, and we're going to make it right over here. Now, I like to use the font Arial for this. I don't... Maybe I didn't. I think I use... Well, either way, for this, we're going to use a font called Gotham Book. And so we place live kind of like over both of these. I'm also thinking about, while I'm doing this, what this is going to look like with the rectangle. There came my dog in, if you saw her. I'm going to align it with the rectangle down here and let that stick out a little bit more. And so all we want to do is get a nice rectangle around this and make sure that everything is centered all the way around it. Now, if you're trying to center a text, within a shape, you can see that this is actually giving me a little bit on each side of space, and I don't want that, and some down below. That's going to make the centering process off with the tools that we're going to use. So turn this into a shape by using Control-Shift-O, and now you can see we're only using the actual shape. Let's select this, and now we're going to make sure that we align this. We're aligning to selection because I don't want to align this with the artboard. That's the entire white square. I don't want to align with that. I want to align with this. So let's place what we're going to use is, now those are pretty similar. We use a tool up here in the bar up here. If you don't have that tool, you can also go to Pathfinder and then go to Align, and you'll have it here. But we're going to align horizontal align center and horizontal align vertical. And now that's right in the middle. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. About like that. And so, with that being said, we want to cut this out of this so that, as you can see in the logo down here, you're seeing some of the... Actually, nope, I did not do that. So we're not going to cut that out so that it still looks white through that. With it looking black, I thought that would look weird whenever I first did it. So what we do now is we size it. It's a little big for this logo, so let's size this down. Something about like that. And that actually looks decent. So that is not actually a black color, however, and I've already grabbed this. That is that red color. That's the original color that it was. So that's how that would look. However, for this, what you're seeing is that last logo that I made, which is the white one. Let's see if I can find it. Light 2. That's the logo that I used. So in this scenario, that works for this. I'm actually going to keep it. If you wanted to change this, again, because we've organized our files, you can easily just go in here to, I don't know what group is. See? We're going to name that live text and live rectangle. And I'm actually going to select both of those and group them and put live. So now if we wanted to see this, we could open it and see, oh, there's a live text, live rectangle. But now, since we want this to be on a black background, we need to make it all white. I'm just going to select celeryman and the subtitle and give it a white background. So whenever this is over something black, as you can see, it is in the stream right now. That's how it would look, which isn't bad, but it's a little bit different than what we have. I'm just comparing it. What we have is a little bit bigger. Something more like that. Yeah. That's closer to what we have down here. And another thing, if you notice, this isn't solid white. Down in this subbar, below the program. Instead, it's a little bit lighter. So I'm actually going to grab all of this, not the background, and the one you're seeing is 50% opacity. We change that right up here. There's another number of places you can change it. That's the one I like to use. Press enter, and that's how it looks. And I believe, yep, just checking the monitor. That's pretty close. I don't remember the actual font I used for that, but I actually like this one a little bit better than the one I'm using. However, I've already made it. I'm not going to change it. So, yeah, that's how you go about making a logo type logo. And those are some elements that some people might use to make their logos. So, something, I don't know if this might be a lot more work than you thought that goes into logos. There's a lot that goes into it. I've currently been on this stream, I have no idea how long. But I've currently been on the stream a little bit longer than it would typically take me, just trying to explain everything out to you and things like that. Something like this would probably take like 15 or 20 minutes to make, which isn't very long when you know what you're doing. It used to take a lot longer. So, yeah, I guess that's all that I have for this stream. We're just making these logos. So yeah, if you liked this, come back to another stream. I can't promise when I'm going to be streaming because I have absolutely no idea. It's just as I want to. Come back, and I'm gonna get more in depth into some tools and things that you might use to create a logo or something along those lines. And maybe one day in the future you can make a logo for yourself that would be pretty suitable for what you're wanting to do, and you'll know how to do it now. So as you can see, going back isn't really that hard. You could also use like undo or something along those lines. But yeah, so my name's celeryman. This has been like a quick graphic tutorial by me. I'm gonna be making more of these in the future, and if there's something that you want to see, like, leave me a comment and let me know, because I'd love to cover something for y'all that you're interested in. So anyway, that has been the logo design for the graphics logo that I'll be using on all of these streams that deal with graphics. So thanks, and I will see you in the next stream. Later.